Hello and welcome to Brewers Daily, part of the Fan Arch Podcast Network. This episode is brought to you by Kalshi. Use promo code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10. I'm Dave Gasper here. Lots to talk about. Over the weekend, the Brewers dropped the series against the Atlanta Braves, lost 2 out of 3, including a walk-off heartbreaker on Saturday off Aaron Ashby. But the Brewers were able to salvage the game on Sunday and avoid getting swept. That puts them, maybe a little bit of momentum heading into this series against Cincinnati. We'll get into that. We'll also get into the news here on Brandon Woodruff and the starting rotation. And we got to talk about Cooper Pratt in his first couple of days here at the big league level. But this weekend series against Atlanta, tough one for the Crew. As mentioned there on Saturday, Kyle Harrison, he gets the start and he does really well, going off against Chris Sale, and Chris Sale, obviously, really good. The Brewers don't put up a ton of runs, but the Brewers were in the lead late. They got to Chris Sale towards the end of his outing. They took the lead. They were in control there, but they had 1-run lead, 2-run lead, and Atlanta just kind of kept going. And down by 1, or Brewers were up by 1. Atlanta was down by 1 in the 9th. Runner on. Aaron Ashby comes in the 9th, and sure enough, it looked kind of like a pop fly, but it just kind of kept carrying and just got over the fence and ends up being a walk-off home run for the Atlanta Braves. So, that is unfortunate, and it does snap the streak of the Brewers winning Kyle Harrison starts. The Brewers had won 10 straight games that Kyle Harrison had pitched, and now that streak is snapped. He's going to have to start over. Hasn't quite gotten to Quinn Priester level. Quinn Priester reached 19 consecutive games last year that he pitched in, and Harrison now at 10, but having to start back over, so that is an unfortunate one. And there was some controversy with Pat Murphy and his decisions there with the bullpen, going with Uribe and McGill in the 7th and the 8th, and saving Ashby there for the 9th. But that was how they lined it up for the pitchers. They wanted these pitchers to face these batters. So if those batters in the middle of the order that Ashby was facing, if they come up in the 7th or the 8th, Ashby would have had that inning instead. So it was just kind of a matter of how it timed out, who they wanted to face which batters, and for that game, it certainly did not work. And I mean, there's merits to that. There certainly are. I mean, there's a lot to be said for the roles of this guy being the 7th inning guy or the 8th inning guy or the 9th inning guy. But I think there also, especially in this kind of new school day and age, that there is a thought process of you want to have your guys, your best relievers facing certain guys in the order, okay? Whether, because if the most important guys in the order are coming up in the 8th inning instead of the 9th, why not have your closer in the 8th inning and things like that? So you match up the pitchers to the batters that they're going to be going against, and you try your best to make it work, and that's what the Brewers tried, and it just ultimately in that game did not work. The Atlanta Braves are a really, really good team. They got a lot of really good players. I mean, they're right there with the Brewers for wins in the National League this year. So it's almost kind of to be expected that was going to be a close series. And being in Atlanta's home turf, that does give them just a little bit of an advantage there. So Atlanta gets the win, but the Brewers on Sunday, they're able to roar back a little bit. You have an 8-run second inning, just kind of kept batting around, and Brewers put up a ton of runs. They got out to a comfortable lead early. Robert Gasser pitching really well, locking it down. He gets his first win in the major leagues since Tommy John surgery. I remember he had that 5-stretch start when he first came up, and then he had to get Tommy John, and he's still kind of been trying to find his way back into that Brewers rotation since then. So for him to be able to get that, I mean, that's fantastic. We're kind of seeing Gasser settle in a little bit more now, which is good, because it seemed kind of early on when Gasser was going in there, he was kind of the least trustworthy of that group of young starters that they had. He had the command issues a little bit. He was walking too many guys, hit too many guys. and now it seems like he's really found his footing a little bit more, and has been on a bit of a roll lately. So happy to see that for Robert Gasser, absolutely. He's a very, very talented pitcher. The Brewers targeted him in the Josh Hader trade initially, the only remaining original piece from that trade. And they got this guy for a reason. So I'm excited to see him kind of continue to get going here and get on a roll, because he did have a really good start on Sunday. But also with that rotation, there is a fresh face coming back to that group. Big Woo is back in the rotation. He is finally going to be rejoining the group after his rehab stint with the Timber Rattlers and him trying to figure out what exactly was going on. He had the dud arm. He could not get the baseball firing. He was throwing 83, 82 in his last start back at the end of April. And he thought, oh, I'm not in any pain. I feel fine. Ball's just not coming out. Had to get a cyst drained from his shoulder. And it's like, okay, well, when's he going to be coming back? When's he going to be coming back? Building back up and, still trying to make sure everything's feeling all right, making a couple adjustments. So it ends up being about, 6 weeks here that Woodruff ends up being out with that dead arm that he was dealing with, which is a bit more in line with reality, I think, than when Woodruff initially said he expected it to be a fairly minimum stint on the IL. I mean, that never really seemed to make sense to me. That was probably just more wishful thinking, I think, on Woodruff's part, because he didn't feel any pain, which is fine. But there's clearly something wrong there, so they believe they've got it figured out. The velocity has kind of been back where they're expecting it to be. So he should be good to go here moving forward. So Brandon Woodruff is going to rejoin the rotation in this series here against the Cincinnati Reds, and that should be today here that we'll see Brandon Woodruff back in this rotation, which is just such a beautiful thing. I mean, to see him back, all the injuries that he's gone through, and having the fresh injuries popping up seemingly all the time, to get him back out on the mound, he's so important to have with this young group and developing this next group of starting pitchers, helping them along. But to have him actually out on the field, it just means so much more. It just kind of adds that extra level of energy, to it and to the team. So I'm very excited to see Brandon Woodruff come back here for this series against Cincinnati Reds and be back in that rotation regularly going forward here. I do wonder if the Brewers are going to kind of stick with a six-man rotation here, because Shane Drone's been pitching pretty well. Gasser's been pitching, pretty well now of late. So, and that could also, it could allow Woodruff to get more of a rest here in between his starts, because his shoulder, the way that it is, he's probably going to need it. Jacob Misiorowski doing what he's been doing. I think the Brewers are more than happy to give him an extra day of rest every now and then. Just with throwing as hard as he is, throwing as deep into games as he is. I think that's something that's going to be a strong possibility that the Brewers look at here going forward, sticking with a potential six-man rotation. We'll see ultimately what Pat Murphy ends up doing, but they have a lot of starting pitchers, a lot of guys that are capable, especially when they're all healthy. A six-man rotation may make a whole ton of sense here for this team. You also got Chad Patrick in the bullpen. You can do some tandems here. If you wanted to keep, Shane Drone and Robert Gasser in there, kind of together, giving them length rolls, that's a possibility, but got a whole ton of options, and especially now with Woodruff coming back. Coming back. That does make it a bit more helpful to the group there as they try and make it through every single game throughout the season. And you can also trade every single game on Kalshi by using promo code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10. And for the Brewers, just kind of looking at this game coming up against the Cincinnati Reds, the Brewers are currently trading at a 60% chance to win in this game. I mean, the Brewers have been playing well. They're very much in first place here in the division, and Cincinnati has really kind of fallen off. So they haven't been playing their best baseball. And the Brewers largely have been, even though they're coming off a series loss here. But even though that's at 60%, I'm trying to look for a little bit of different odds here. But you're playing in Cincinnati, Great American Ballpark, also known as Great American Small Park. to some across the league because it's just small. The baseball flies there. There's a lot of home runs in that stadium. So I'm looking at over 9.5 runs scored. That is currently trading at about 49% for this game, which means a $100 trade pays out $201 with a win if there's 9.5 total runs scored in this game. I'm feeling pretty good about those chances there. So 9.5 runs scored at 49%, $100 pays out 201 with a win. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use promo code FANARCHBASEBALL to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything. All right. We got to talk Cooper Pratt here. Because Cooper Pratt, we've all been, begging the Brewers to call him up for a long time. I mean, you ask anyone on the fan base there, everyone's been, where's Cooper Pratt? Where's Cooper Pratt? You signed him to the extension. Where is he? Call him up, call him up. We're tired of seeing Luis Rengifo. Well, they finally made the move last week. Luis Rengifo is gone. He's been designated for assignment. And the Brewers have called in Cooper Pratt. So, how has he done his first week or so in the major leagues? Obviously, first game hitless for him. That is unfortunate. But since then, 2 for 4, 1 for 2 with a walk, 1 for 3, 2 for 4, 1 for 3 with a walk. He has gotten on base each time. He's gotten on base multiple times, a couple of times. So he's reached base in all 5 of those games since. He has reached base multiple times in 4 of those 5 games. He is hitting .368 with a .409 on base percentage and a .777 OPS. Hasn't had the extra base hits yet, but still 7 for 19 since coming up, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored, 3 stolen bases. So, and he also had a fantastic play at shortstop on Sunday. Cooper Pratt is providing a spark here to the bottom of the lineup, which is huge, which is exactly what we thought he was going to be doing whenever it was that he did get called up, okay? Because Luis Rengifo, God bless him, but he was not providing the production there on the left side of the infield. He just was not. So you needed to kind of make a change there. You have already designated Cooper Pratt as a guy for you going forward. He's come over, he has taken over the everyday shortstop job, and he is hitting the ball, he is getting on base, and that's what Pat Murphy has talked about numerous times in terms of their offensive philosophy. Get to first. That's all that matters. Whether it doesn't matter if it ends up being, a double, a home run, whatever else, just get on base. Let the guys behind you do the rest, okay? Just get on base, steal bases, do all of that. That's what he's doing. 7 hits, 3 stolen bases already, hitting .368. He has not looked overmatched really at the plate. I mean, that first game obviously was, a lot of emotions, a lot of jitters there potentially. But since then, he has settled in quite nicely. He has gotten on base multiple times, and he's providing a spark. And that's what you wanted for. That's what you've been looking for here. That's exactly what you needed when you called up Cooper Pratt, whenever it was. And the Brewers wanted to wait until they felt he was big league ready. They wanted to wait until I guess that they had seen enough of Luis Rengifo. You probably could have seen enough of him maybe a month ago. But Cooper Pratt himself had to be ready. The Brewers viewed his defense as major league ready, yes, but they wanted to get him going offensively first. Then it's like, okay, he seems to be on enough of a roll and figured enough things out there in AAA. It's time to make the change. And sure enough, they did. And now he is proving that he is in a really good spot here at the big league level. And we're going to be seeing him as a mainstay in this lineup for years and years to come. So very excited to see him get off to a hot start like this. And he's going to try and continue it as he takes on the Cincinnati Reds here coming up this week. So we got this series against Cincinnati Reds. So you're facing a division opponent here. Cincinnati Reds started off strong this season, but they have since fell off quite a bit. and they're currently sitting under 500 at 37 and 39, 9.5 games back in the NL Central. So they are at the cellar of the division, and it's unfortunate for them because they had a lot of high hopes. They made the playoffs last year, so they thought they were going to be getting better, and they've really kind of been scuffling here in the early going. But looking at this series and the matchup coming up, the Brewers, it's so officially it's not yet Brandon Woodruff. But once they make the roster move, that's it's going to be Brandon Woodruff here tonight for the Brewers against Cincinnati. Brady Singer is going to be on the mound for Cincinnati. Singer, 3-6 record on the season, 5.32 ERA. So he's not had a great season. He just hasn't. An ERA in the fives, not ideal there for Brady Singer. But he's a right-hander. Then on Tuesday, coming up tomorrow, Brandon Sproat on the mound again. Him and his 5.94 ERA also struggled a little bit against Nick Lodolo, the left-hander, and his 6.12 ERA. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about that over 9.5 runs scored for this potential series here. But that is the matchup there on Tuesday. So with a lefty on the mound with Lodolo, can see kind of the flips there in the lineup and sitting maybe some of those left-handers that the Brewers usually have in there. And then on Wednesday, the finale against Cincinnati, Shane Drowan, the left-hander, on the bump for the Crew. Rhett Lauder, the right-hander, is on the mound for Cincinnati. Lauder, a 4.82 ERA on the season. So those are the pitching matchups here for this series. It should be a fun one as Brewers finish up this road trip before they come back home and take on the Chicago Cubs. And that's going to be a huge series. The Cubs are going to need a big one if they're going to climb their way back into this division as we head into really the heat of the pennant races. The calendar is soon going to be turning to July. So it's a very important week coming up here for the Crew. A couple of divisional opponents with Cincinnati and then the Chicago Cubs after that. So we'll be breaking it all down here on Brewers Daily as we always do. Also follow me on Twitter at dgasper24. I'll have tons of great content going up there as well. Appreciate all of you watching and listening, and we'll see you again next time for another episode of Brewers Daily.